Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're taking a deep look at the battle for Pokrovsk and the growing belief that Russia is trying to trap Ukraine using brute force, relentless pressure, and a combination of overwhelming firepower and infiltration tactics. This update is intense, fast, changing, and critical to understanding what's happening on the Eastern Front. So let's break everything down clearly and simply, with short paragraphs, no headings, and a full 3,000-word script. Pokrovsk has become one of the most fiercely contested points in the war. The city sits in a strategically vital location, acting as a major logistical artery that feeds Ukrainian defensive lines throughout the region. Losing it would be a blow to Ukraine's supply routes, troop rotation systems, and defensive depth. Ukraine understands this, Russia understands this, and that's why both sides are throwing everything they can into this fight. In recent weeks, the situation has escalated dramatically. Russia has intensified its push toward Pokrovsk, sending in wave after wave of infantry, armored vehicles, and artillery strikes aimed at grinding down Ukrainian positions. Much of this offensive pressure fits what analysts are calling a brute force strategy, a relentless attempt to overwhelm defenders through sheer numbers and constant attacks. On top of that, Russia has been launching powerful glide bombs into Ukrainian positions, flattening defensive structures, damaging fortifications, and making it harder for Ukrainian troops to hold steady ground. These air-launched weapons travel long distances and hit with devastating force. Their growing use is one of the biggest challenges for Ukrainian units trying to hold the city. At the same time, Russia has shifted toward a more flexible, hybrid approach on the ground. Instead of depending only on heavy armor, they've started moving small infiltration groups into vulnerable areas. These teams come in using motorcycles, civilian vehicles, and even traveling on foot through side roads, trenches, and broken urban spaces. They use the threat of large assaults to pin Ukrainian units down, and then slip through any gaps they find. One major factor enabling these infiltration tactics is the weather. Thick fog has been hovering over Pokrovsk and surrounding areas for days at a time. Fog is a major problem for Ukrainian drones, which rely on visibility to detect troop movements, track vehicles, identify threats, and coordinate artillery. When fog blinds drone operators, it creates windows of opportunity for Russian troops to advance without being spotted. Russian forces have quickly adapted to this weather advantage. They have been using low visibility conditions to move forward quietly, take temporary positions, or get close enough for sudden, concentrated attacks. Reports describe Russian fighters speeding through fog on motorbikes or in small vehicles, firing, repositioning, and repeating the process to keep Ukrainian defenders guessing. But despite these challenges, Ukraine has not allowed their defensive lines to collapse. The Ukrainian military has responded by deploying elite special forces and rapid response units to key neighborhoods, crossroads, and choke points in and around Pokrovsk. These specialized teams are highly mobile, skilled in urban combat, and familiar with hit-and-run tactics. Their presence has helped stabilize parts of the front that were at risk of falling. Ukraine is also relying heavily on smart warfare tools, swarm drones, electronic warfare systems, and flexible artillery groups that can strike fast and relocate before Russia can respond. These tools have become essential for balancing out Russia's numerical advantage. The Ukrainian army knows they cannot always match Russian manpower, so they focus on precision, speed, and disrupting enemy coordination. In some sectors, Ukrainian forces have successfully halted Russian advances and even launched counterattacks. In a few areas, Ukrainian units have managed to cut off Russian supply routes, creating pockets where Russian troops are trapped without reinforcements or ammunition. These pockets, sometimes called cauldrons, can become major turning points if Ukraine manages to close them fully and break Russian formations from within. Still, the overall strategic situation remains incredibly tense. Russia is determined to take Pokrovsk because capturing it would open the door to further advances deeper into Ukrainian held Donetsk. It would also strain Ukrainian logistics and slow down troop movements, making future defenses much harder to sustain. For Ukraine, losing Pokrovsk would mean giving up a major junction city that connects multiple important supply lines. It would also force Ukrainian units to reorient their defensive positions, potentially complicating efforts to defend nearby towns and villages. That's why Ukrainian commanders have been pouring reinforcements, ammunition, and engineering teams into the area to strengthen trenches, buildings, and fallback lines. Urban combat is playing a major role in this battle. Pokrovsk's layout includes residential areas, industrial zones, open fields, and narrow streets that create a difficult environment for both sides. Russia's heavy artillery and glide bombs can destroy buildings, but rubble often becomes a natural defensive shield for Ukrainian infantry. Urban terrain favors defenders, especially those who know the layout of basements, tunnels, and strong points. This is one reason the Russian advance has been slower than they hoped. Even with artillery superiority, moving street to street costs time, resources, and lives. Urban combat is exhausting, unpredictable, and full of ambush opportunities. Ukrainian troops have used this to their advantage, engaging in close quarters battles where Russian firepower is less effective. At the same time, Russia keeps trying to widen the flanks around Pokrovsk. By attacking villages south and east of the city, they aim to stretch Ukrainian defenses thin and create the beginning of an encirclement. The ultimate goal seems to be cutting off Pokrovsk from the west, which would trap Ukrainian troops inside and isolate them from reinforcements. This is the essence of Russia's trap strategy. Instead of relying solely on a frontal storming of the city, they push from multiple directions, hoping to surround Ukrainian defenders and force them into a difficult withdrawal. If the city becomes encircled, Ukraine may have to evacuate before losing large numbers of troops, but Ukraine is fully aware of this threat. Commanders have been reinforcing western routes, ensuring that supplies and reinforcements can still reach the city. They've also been improving their defensive lines behind Pokrovsk, preparing for the possibility of a tactical withdrawal or the need to create new defensive zones if the situation worsens. One of the most important factors right now is the battle for control of high ground around the city. Small hills and elevated areas provide major advantages for artillery spotting and drone surveillance. Both sides are fiercely contesting these points because losing them could expose entire brigades to enemy fire. Another major challenge comes from the intense drone war unfolding over Pokrovsk. Both Ukraine and Russia are using thousands of drones, reconnaissance drones, explosive FPV drones, and kamikaze drones that strike armored vehicles or infantry positions. Fog, electronic jamming, and constant drone losses create a chaotic environment where both sides struggle to maintain a stable picture of the battlefield. Russia's electronic warfare systems attempt to jam Ukrainian drones, while Ukrainian operators use rapid repositioning and frequency changes to keep their drones online. This drone duel is shaping the outcome of many individual battles inside the city and on the outskirts. As the fight continues, both armies face fatigue, ammunition shortages, and logistical challenges. Winter conditions, freezing temperatures, and muddy terrain complicate movements. Vehicles get stuck, drone batteries drain faster, and soldiers must endure harsh weather during long engagements. Despite everything, morale on both sides remains a major factor. Ukrainian troops are fighting to protect their homeland, while Russian units are under pressure to achieve a decisive breakthrough after months of slow progress. This dynamic creates intense battles where neither side wants to back down. Another key element is international support. Ukraine continues to receive supplies, ammunition, and equipment from allies, though the pace sometimes fluctuates. Artillery shells, anti-drone systems, and armored vehicles delivered in time can determine whether Ukrainian forces hold or lose critical sectors. Russia, meanwhile, is drawing from large reserves of Soviet-era equipment and new production lines. Their ability to produce artillery shells and missiles has increased, giving them the capability to maintain sustained bombardments for long periods. This industrial advantage is part of why Russia is leaning heavily on brute force in Pokrovsk. But brute force has its limits. It consumes enormous resources and can lead to massive casualties if not paired with smarter tactics. That's why Russia has been mixing heavy pressure with small infiltration teams and reconnaissance groups, attempting to balance quantity with adaptability. The question now is how long each side can sustain this level of intensity. Urban battles typically become wars of attrition, where supply lines, troop rotation, intelligence, and stamina matter as much as firepower. As days turn into weeks, both armies face the challenge of keeping their forces supplied and maintaining combat effectiveness. Pokrovsk may become a turning point depending on how these factors evolve. If Ukraine manages to hold the city, Russia's momentum in this part of the front could stall. If Russia succeeds in encircling or capturing it, the entire balance in the region may tilt in their favor. Right now, everything hangs in the balance. The fog-covered streets, the constant artillery fire, the drone duels, the infiltration attempts, and the fierce defenders all form part of a battle that continues to shift rapidly from hour to hour. Neither side is giving up, and every advance or setback shapes the next phase of the conflict. As we continue observing the situation, one thing is clear. The battle for Pokrovsk is not just another clash. It's a strategic showdown that could influence the broader trajectory of the war. Both armies know how important this city is, and that's why the fighting is so intense, so costly, and so unrelenting. This is a battle of endurance, strategy, and willpower. It's a test of whether brute force can overpower clever defense, or whether adaptability and precision can beat overwhelming numbers. The answer to that question is still unfolding on the front lines, and the next days and weeks will be critical. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for more updates as we continue to follow this developing situation.